C-Roc, welcome to the show, my friend.
What's up, Eric? Thanks for having me, man. I'm so thankful to be here and be able to bring my movement and my value to your show and to your audience.
Absolutely, and we're privileged to have you here, bud. It's great to have an amazing business leader on our show, especially in 2020, right? I mean, we've really 2020 started out really nice. I think a lot of us are like, hey, it's great. It's 2020. There's not much to worry about. And then March hit and it never left. It's like March is just going to permanently be here with us forever. And I know a lot of business people are stressing out, especially folks that lost their job. They want to go create something. You know, a lot of people are creating. And like I led off before you came on, I was saying that in the last 30 decades, last 3 decades, we've seen the most growth of businesses ever. I mean, Amazon came out of this. Salesforce came out of this. You start listing all these amazing brands that are now, you know, 3 Comma Club folks, and a lot of those come from just out of your garage. So it's 2020. A lot of people are sitting at home and they're looking at you and I, going, "Okay, I'm here. I'm watching the show. C-Roc, tell me how I can go build a business and achieve greatness, and kind of understand that it's not an overnight success product." I always say I'm a 7-year overnight success. I don't know I don't know how many year overnight success you are. I have yet to meet an overnight success, and that goes from guys like Gary Vee, Grant Cardone. I haven't met one that's like, I just woke up and I was rich. I mean, we're not all
Yeah, yeah.
So kind of jump in. Where do you see, how do people keep a positive light during such a hard time? If you are a small business owner, how are you keeping your head? What do you say to folks so they keep their head up?
Well, first of all, the journey to success is often invisible. A lot of people that you see successful, great people, visionaries, leaders, you don't see their journey. You don't see their setbacks. You don't see their mistakes that they made. And so when I'm on my journey to where I'm going, Eric, by the way, I am documenting and being transparent with my journey with people so that they can see that if they're going to go somewhere and they have a big vision to go somewhere, if they run into a setback, they understand it's part of the process. And that doesn't happen often enough. And so just to hit that point there. But as far as, one of the things with COVID happened, I was in the mortgage business in 2008. I still am. And I watched what happened in 2008. And what I mean by that is I looked at the news. I looked at politicians. I looked at reactions of people. I looked at how the business, reacted to it. And I watched other mortgage companies and realtors. I watched it all and I journaled and I kept track of everything. And I did it for a reason because I like to learn. And I've always been like that because I don't want to go through the same thing over and over again if it's bad. So in doing that, I knew that 10 years or so, I didn't know exactly the time, but before too long, it was going to come back. Something that was going to happen that was similar, and I wanted to know how to react. So I'm so glad I did that. And then, so when COVID happened, we were all expecting some kind of correction in the market. You kept hearing it in the news. I don't know if it was Democrats doing it just to mess with Trump or Trump I don't know. But the fact of the matter is something was going to come. We had no idea it was going to be a virus. When COVID happened, immediately I got with my team. I recognized what could happen. I had no idea that the outcome, we didn't know, but I'd rather prepare for the worst. And we got into a team meeting and we started preaching the fact that this is going to be the reason we excel. This is going to be the reason that we just take over our market and we're going to dominate. And I started getting that and planting that seed in my people's heads so that they started talking it as well and started to believe it, instead of COVID being a reason that we fail or that we use that as an excuse for why we fall back. So first of all, I wanted to say that for in businesses, it's a mindset thing. Now, there's things out of your control. We all know that. But you got to be able to control the things you control. And too often, it isn't outside factors that stop people. It's themselves. So that's how we reacted to COVID. And we've come out of it with 3 record-breaking months. And it's been phenomenal. But as far as starting a new business is a great opportunity as well. But you have to have a vision and be clear with it. And then the only thing stopping you from that point is action, the level of action you take. And I preach that all the time. It's simple, but most people don't want to do the action, Eric.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
That's true. That's true. We've talked to a lot of, influential business leaders on our show, and that's the same thing. You guys give pretty much the same awesome advice is, you've got to take care of yourself, number one. That's the most important person if you're going to achieve it, and then just do the work, right? It's not, you don't just snap your fingers and the job gets done. And it's great you talk about pivoting and adapt. I always say, being that Marine, I think of course, it's the moment to the point where Eric again shares that he's a Marine. For everybody who doesn't know and has tuned into all the other hundreds of episodes we have, this is where Eric reminds the audience that he was in the military.
Well, thank you for your service, though, man. And it's important. Keep reminding people, because you know what, man, I didn't do it.
Yeah.
So,
but I love it, and I'm finding this, and this is a compliment to you and several other of the leaders that we talk to. A lot of success, besides when I see it in my own folks in the veteran community, you guys have basically the same. It's a different phrase, but I tie it to adapt and overcome. Right? You see the problem, and there's two methods you could do this. You can carry on, right? I'm going to do it my way, and I'll be fine. Some companies have been able to do that during COVID. Nothing changed. Business as usual, and they're crushing it. And others made the quick pivot. They adapted, overcome, got together with their team and said, hey, our mission has changed or hasn't changed, but this is what we're going to need to do to continue on. This is the best way. Let's be prepared. And then there's some people, the third option was like, COVID is fake, and we're gonna be fine. And you're like, well, now your brick and mortar store isn't open, and your employees are online saying how horrible you are. Good job. Way to go off of the think about yourself kind of issue. So we have those three. But let's talk about something positive. And I think it's amazing. I read this about you, that you were recently featured on Yahoo Finance as one of the top business leaders in 2020. So why do you think that you're so obsessed with seeing people become successful and achieve greatness? I think that's a great thing to be known for, my friend, is that you have this mission that isn't to make C-Roc famous and achieve greatness, but others to achieve greatness. And very few put others before themselves. Obviously, you take care of yourself, you have to, but to see others achieve greatness, very few put that out there publicly.
Yeah, the only reason that I would want to be famous is to reach more people, to get attention and be known and get out of obscurity. But the thing is, it started back when I was 11 years old. I came from a broken home. I don't remember my parents together. And like a lot of your audience, they know that the custody battles, the child support conflicts, the relationship conflicts between the parents and step-parents. As a young kid, I thought that was normal, and I dealt with that. But for 3 years, I decided to move with my dad when I was 8 to 11 years old. And I was around a lot of broken people. And the environment wasn't conducive to a happy childhood. And at 11 years old, I was mature enough to know that. So I decided to get out, and I asked my mom to file court papers. And when she did, eventually my dad got served those papers. And I came home from school with him having those in his hand. And I already walked on eggshells in this household as it was anyway. But when I got home from school, he told me to get in my room and wait. And I was in there for probably 5 minutes, but it felt like 5 hours. And he finally comes in and says, hey, this paper here says that you want to move in with your mom. Is that something you sure about? Because your mom doesn't have it that well off. We have it pretty well here. And my dad was my hero. He had a masonry business. I have the bricks behind me. There was to symbolize that. He was my hero, man. He had a great masonry business. He worked hard, hustled, and he always had a wad of $100 bills in his pocket with a rubber band around it. And I always looked up to him for that. And, for the things that got us, and he used to flash it like it was cool. And, as a kid, man, that's my hero, So when I confirmed the fact, and I stuck to my guns like my mom told me to, which still sticks with me to this day, that I wanted to move back with my mom, he says, okay. So he takes the wad of $100 bills out of his pocket that he always had in there, peels one off and crumples it up and throws it at me and said, here, you're going to need this when you're living on the streets with your mother one day. Now, I'm 11 years old when this happens. And by the way, Eric, I don't tell you this to tear my dad down. When you tell your story to people, sometimes I don't know, it's bad for some people. And I don't mean to do that by any means, because I don't know what was going on. I don't know the whole story. But I will tell you, two things happened at that moment. Now, I thought this was an ordinary situation. I didn't know any better. But I did know that, one, that other people had to be going through this scenario. Like, I can't be the only one been given up on or had the towel thrown in on them. And I was going to help people that have been in situations like that by showing them that you could succeed and be great. I knew that at 11 years old. I didn't know how I was going to do it. So I started off by being a role model. Everything I did, I hustled. I tried to do just be the best. And from there, the other thing I thought about was this: you're not going to win. I'm not going to need that $100. I'm not going to need that, and I'm going to excel. So I've had like a rocket fuel injection my whole life. Now, 2 years ago, long story short, 2 years ago when I hit about 40, I'm not going to tell you my exact age, I had an epiphany that I was living off of street smarts and not book smarts. And I believe you need book smarts first street smarts first to me, because that's the hustle. That's the action. But eventually you hit a ceiling because you run out of knowledge. And then the book smarts need to kick in. Well, I had to stop being so hard-headed and thinking I know everything. So I started learning, and I became aware of this movement that I've had and been on, and I call it, what are you made of? And it's all about turning setbacks, letdowns, negativity into rocket fuel for your future. And once you become aware of this, Eric, your life's never the same, man.
I love that you said that. And shockingly enough, offline we can have a long conversation, but our childhoods are very similar. That's kind of funny that you're telling this story, and I'm like, I totally relate. And it's also not putting down. I've done the same thing. I guess some people say you're kind of harsh on your biological father. I mean, I have two great dads. My stepfather I've spent a lot of time with, but my father taught me a lot also. But trust me, a lot of what he did caused some rocket fuel in my life too. And I also am 40-ish. I like that. I love that you went with 40-ish. It's good. I'm going to use that. You're 40-ish. I don't know what age that is, but I'm rocking it. I'm going, that's like 30.
Love it.
30-ish. I'll be 30-ish too. I love it. Thank you, C-Roc. You gave me something good to go with. No, but here's one of the things, and I love asking guys like you this. We've seen never before in 2020 this kind of, I don't know how to put it into words, but this head in the sand is like what I like to say, mentality amongst a lot of business owners that are out there who don't have the fuel. They had it, and all of a sudden COVID came in and knocked them down. Now, restaurateurs, I know that they have felt this right on the chin with the back and forth with, the right ways to do business. And then on our show, we have talked about this unemployment where people are made, let's see, $1,000 a week or go back to work and make well less of that. Well, it's funny. Now people are going back to work. I saw the reports that came in on some job numbers, and funny enough, we're below a million for the first time in a long time. I think as people decided they probably should go back to work now because the unemployment thing went away. But how do you do this as someone who's leading a business and you've kind of got yourself in this depression funk of how are we going to recover from this? It looks like that journey, and I get it. And I think the point of my question as I rant on here is this. A lot of people became successful before COVID hit, and now they feel that they're back at block one, starting over, same business. It's like starting all over again. It's this whole new design, whole new dance, whole new world. What do you say to those folks?
I say that you need to go through that, because if you weren't aware that you needed to have the mindset that this was going to be the reason you succeed and not the reason you fail, you needed this lesson. And I just say it like it is, man. And I believe that, I went through that in 2008, man. I mean, I went through rock bottom, but I journaled while I was doing it because I wasn't going to go through it again. I didn't want that feeling again. And I've been sharing with others these things because I don't want to see people go through that. However, I banged my head against the wall. And being vulnerable is important, guys. Being vulnerable, by the way, is a strength, not a weakness. I like to share this. I bang my head against the wall when I have the answer for people, and they don't do it, or they don't take the answer. They think they know everything. And so sometimes people need to feel that pain. And from that pain, they'll either die or they're going to be successful. And so that's what I would say to them. And, the other thing I think about with people taking the unemployment and not working, I think they did it for a short period of time because at the end of the day, it's like a vacation. But how long can you be on vacation before you go nuts? And depression sets in and anxiety sets in because we're supposed to work, Eric. Us as human beings, we're supposed to be productive. And when we're not productive, things start messing with you. And so I think that despite the fact that the unemployment went down a little bit, it still was bumped up a little to $400, I guess, a week. At the end of the day, people started feeling like, hey, man, I should be doing something. And people that are in their right mind go back to work.
Yeah. I agree with you on that one, and I think that's very true. A lot of people, they want to work. I mean, I get some of those people, the couch dwellers. There's the same people who troll you on social media. Nothing better to do. They're always the ones hating on success and why people are getting up and going and grinding even though you don't want to. It's easy to sit on your couch. It's easy to lay in bed all day if you don't have to take your kids to school and you're working from home and nobody's checking your hours. I think that's an interesting mentality that we've all kind of watched go through as we've been through COVID. But one of the things that I always tell business owners, and I'd love your thoughts on this, is to achieve greatness, you have to fail, right? And 2020 is just, like you said, it's part of a learning experience. I, like you, just a few short years ago, went through the same experience. And I've shared my story of how, ugly it was and how we almost hit rock bottom. But like you, I also journaled, kept that, and it's fresh, right? Not only do you journal, but you remember the pain. If you are the business owner, trust me, that pain is fresh. and you believe in, like Mark Cuban said, that there's somebody who's staying awake all night trying to take away everything that you have. If you lose that mentality, you'll get comfortable and you will fail. If not, you continue striving, and yeah, you'll have bumps in the road, but you'll just overcome them because the bumps aren't as bad as they used to be. Why do you think so many people are afraid to fail? It's like you have to. It's like you can't sugarcoat it. Still to this day in business, we probably fail at something once a week. I hate to admit it, but we do. And we learn from tiny mistakes, whether it's a way an email was worded or a business deal that went south because of just poor communication. You learn from it and you take over, and then when you deal with it again, you're like, hey, okay, we've run by this. We know better. We know not to react. You know those inflammatory emails that people can send you that you want to be like,
Yep.
I'm going to be angry. And you're like, nah, I'm professional. Admit no fault and just say, okay, well, we want to work with you. Keep this professional, short, sweet, to the point. I think it's funny a lot of business owners don't react. They react in such a very, like, we're not going to fail. We're never wrong. What's your intake on this refusal to admit failure, refusal in a business relationship to be like, dude, okay, we screwed up. You don't have to admit fault. I always tell business, you don't have to say, hey, I screwed up. You just fix it, or you find a way to fix it. However you do that, that's what you have to do.
Well, first of all, it's a lack of knowledge. I'll say that again, that people, one, have a negative connotation of what the word fail means. So that, first of all, lack of knowledge and understanding that that's a learning process. It's fuel for you. It's a training session for you. It's how you get better. If people understood failure as, here's the thing. When you're in the gym lifting, and, I don't go to the gym much. I just have naturally big arms, but just kidding. But when you're lifting, you fail. You go to failure, right? Because that makes you bigger and stronger, right? So the same thing in business, same thing in life. You go through things, and it's just people don't know something. It's lack of knowledge. Now, the other thing what you mentioned with regards to failure is that to me, like emails, for example, somebody sends an ignorant email. Sometimes you read into the email wrong. It might not even be the way they wrote it. And you could just be thinking at that moment, because you're dealing with some other problems, that email came off that way. So there's nothing that's unrecoverable from. And I believe that you need to admit fault when you're at fault. And I believe that you can admit fault when you're not at fault, because I believe this is how we operate in our organization. We believe in 100% responsibility. Like I don't want to give control to someone else. And anytime that you allow someone else to take responsibility for something and take fault with something, you let them control. And I don't want to do that. So I don't know anybody else out there that when I talk to people and give them the option, would you rather be a puppet or a puppet master? Nobody chooses the puppet. So I hope that was clear. Basically, the way I handle it is 100% responsibility, understanding that, even if I'm not at fault, I could have done something differently to change the circumstance.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I think I was meaning, but didn't come out. What I was saying is always there's always a fix to anything. There's always a way to remedy it. Sorry, it's probably where rewind, throw that back out there. It would be like, no, we don't care. No, there's ways to fix everything. And I tell people, I think that's a lesson. I've been mentoring a lot of people lately, and I was giving them advice. And one of the things I learned as our business grew is sometimes you have to admit when you're wrong, right? And you're just like, okay, this failed. And sometimes that sucks because you're like, here you go, push the money back across the table, where years ago you wouldn't, right? You'd be like, you can take me to court or do whatever. I've heard all things from business owners, and I'm sure you have too, where people are like, well, we have a strict no refund policy. Sometimes you just got to do what's right and be like, slide it across the table, go, here you go. At least we part professionally. And I tell people that all the time. Why do you think so many business owners fight that? Like, it cracks me up when you're just like, you escalate something to the upteenth degree in business. And I don't know why we're jumping down this. I think I read an article.
No, that's fine.
But it's something that drives me nuts because I see a lot of business owners talking about it. I was on Facebook recently, and this whole I was like, you're making this public. And I always wonder, and I asked this business owner, I sent him a message. I was like, hey, I'm wondering, did you try to resolve this between you and the other party? Like, did you guys just say, hey, okay, we were wrong, and how do we fix this? And if we can't fix it, why don't we just give you the money back? What we didn't use or what wasn't used for staff, whatever remains, will go back to you because we did do our job. Did you approach them? And he's like, no, why would I do that? And I'm like, because now you're being publicly shamed. You don't have any email correspondence that's showing you that you're trying to do this. I don't understand why you're making it this way. Why do you think business owners are so stubborn, right? Why don't
two things. Two things.
Sweet.
One is lack lack mentality or scarcity. You hear them, scarcity mentality. They're worried about replacing that money, and they're worried about the fact that they have to go chase another dollar, and they don't think there's enough dollars out there for some reason. That's one thing, because they don't want to do the work. The other thing is people are more worried about being right than being successful. Mm-hmm. And when you're worried more about being right than you are not just successful, but in a relationship, for example, this is why a lot of relationships fail and marriages fails, because people are worried about being right and proving a point rather than just getting along and moving on and developing and building the relationship. Now, I'm not a therapist in marriage, but I can tell you that I've been married 17 years. I've gone through ups and downs, but I've studied what my relationship is all about, and I know how to solve issues in my relationship now. And so that makes me an expert. I don't care. I don't need a certification. I have the backing and experience. So, but that's what it's all about, man.
Yeah. I agree with you. I'm 16 years into marriage, and absolutely there's been plenty of bumps, but the one thing I've actually, and it's funny, and it's been the last, and she'll laugh when she hears this, it's been the last 6 years that I've really started listening to her advice, especially on business. It's funny, like in personal, we would like argue about it, but in like business, it's been, that's right. I probably shouldn't be that hothead when I respond, or I should just go, here you go. Oh, you want to be unprofessional? Here you go. We'll just wave at you and send you on your way. And that's the advice I give to people now. It's like, that's what I've learned, is like, treat it like you do there's give and take. And sometimes you just don't want the back and forth. Nobody wants the back and forth when in business. Send those, and I want to talk about angry customers because I know they exist. COVID-19 has put a lot of people in interesting places in the business world with dealing with customer service. I mean, we've seen it in the airlines industry. We've seen it in the retail industry, just returning things. It's caused delays. I mean, it just naturally does. I mean, a lot of businesses hide behind it still to this day in August. They're still like, well, COVID-19 is causing 6-month delays. I mean, things people have ordered in February are just now arriving. It's kind of crazy when you think about that. Like,
you want to see confusion. When somebody's coming at you, agree with them and then kill them with kindness.
Yep.
And watch the look on their face if you're in person, or just listen to their voice. And just understand and empathize with them, no matter if you believe, like, not necessarily believe them, but agree with them or not.
Yeah.
So I would do that and watch what happens. The other thing is, I run a mortgage division as well.
Yeah.
And, we're in a situation where rates drop through the floor into the 2s. COVID happens, and everything's like, all hell's breaking loose, and we can't hire fast enough. So everything's taking longer. So we're dealing with that as well. The responses from people, not just the customers, but real estate agents, and every company's dealing with this. And we have to really be careful with our emotional responses in regards to that.
Yeah, that's funny that you say. I think that's each industry. I mean, I work in media. You can imagine our hell of every day, especially national media, when things change from day to day, and you have to be like, I know I told you Wednesday, but Biden picked his vice president, so now you're pushed to next week. Now, to be clear, like throughout the process, we were always telling people, hey, and we also have, I think in business, it's funny, and we're not going to talk about the legality of business, but force majeures have saved a lot of businesses this year because you're able to say, hey, look, we were not predicting this. When we sold this to you, we had no idea this was happening. Like, you want to deal with that, go deal with that. But let's talk about this, because it's the part of business I think a lot of people ignore. Why do so many businesses work without a net? Why do they, I hear it all the time. Just recently I was in a group chat, a group like podcast thing online, and it was a bunch of business owners, and we were taking questions, and we had this young business owner come on, and they said, I've been working a lot, but we're not working with contracts. We're just doing business. We just send the invoice, and that's our business model. And I'm like, oh my goodness, yeah, you're making money. Yeah, it must be nice, but how long can that go on? I know I work with agreements. I would presume your businesses, especially in the mortgage industry, everything is highly regulated. I mean, what's your thoughts on these business owners that are just like, hey, I'm just going, and I haven't had the time to get a contract, even have a business plan. It's basically, we just go. What's your thoughts on those kind of folks?
Well, it's just a continuance of how they run their lives. Yeah. So it's the same thing with with the diet, working out. It's the same kind of thing. I don't have a program, and I just go to the gym. Yeah. I just go and work a body part. Yeah. I just try to eat less. Yeah. I go without eating. It's the same concept. It's all the way. It's lack of structure. and commitment to what they're trying to accomplish. It's just a trickle down effect from that, or it's all connected. So really, when you want to get things done the right way, now I will say this: you don't need to have contracts and have everything in place to go make money. I believe that you need to go after it and do that and make money, but you also have to set some time aside to get that straight, or hire someone to get that straight once you start making your money. It can't continue to go for a long period of time. But if they do continue to do it for a long period of time, it's just the fact that they're not structured or committed to any kind of organization.
And then they learn that valuable lesson about not having contracts and finding out how quickly you can lose your money for doing that. I know. I'm speaking from a couple businesses ago, years ago, learning that contracts are not a joke. Especially working, like I worked in startups, and that was like, you don't do anything without an NDA and a contract. Now it's just a contract, but I'm just amazed by so many people who are rushing out to do business. And it's like my number one thing I ask them. I'm like, okay, it's great you're dedicated, and it's great you have all this in place, but you got to protect yourself, because people live in a very weird, we live in a very weird world. Business people are not.
Yep.
It's interesting. So anyway.
I do think though that it's a very fine line, because people need to understand that they don't need all that to go make money. And some people get paralyzed putting all that together while they're not making any money.
Yeah. That's what's funny, right? Is it's such a fine line. It's like, it's something that you need to deal with, but it's not like your first month you need to deal with it. But like, if you notice you're making, things are starting to be successful, take that time or hire somebody to help you do that. Because it's not a day one thing, but I mean, I would say by day 60, you should probably have a contract, because you're making money, and money coming in can also be money coming out, which is it's something that I keep running into people, especially now in this time. There's people coming back going, well, all of a sudden, I just took this call from somebody crying, and they're like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, what happened? They're like, oh, this client just decided they were going broke, and they went into our PayPal and disputed what we did, and we had to go through this whole fight, and it took forever. And it ended up in our side. I was like, wow, that's a crazy story. I mean, I could see it happening, but I'm like, well, did you have a contract? And they're like, oh, this was before we started doing them. I'm like, well, it's called lesson learned. We've all kind of been there, done that.
The cost of a lesson.
Yeah, it depends on what the cost is. For some people, it's inexpensive. It's a couple $1,000s. Others, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it sucks. Well, hopefully you don't get to that point and you just deal with that another way. But let's talk about, we got some more time here. One of the big things I see from a lot of people in the business world is this, how do I put this? Disparaging belief that if they're not successful or they're struggling, that they need to kind of take everybody down that rabbit hole with them in this negative, like everybody's bad and trashing people. What is going on with these business people that are online just basically crapping on everybody's success?
Well, this is the thing. So first of all, they have to justify why they're not successful, right? So that's what they do in their brain. Their analytical mind makes them justify why they're not where they think they should be, or where the other people are that they're viewing and wasting time looking at. Anytime you're looking at someone that's better off than you, you should be mentoring from them, or gaining knowledge from them, or learning something from them, and celebrating them. And so the other thing is, if you're in a spot where you're getting that hate, this is what the What Are You Made Of movement's all about, is turning setbacks, negativity, anything like that into rocket fuel. And what I mean by that is, I encourage that. If I get hate on social media, if I get somebody laughing at my visions and dreams, I love it. Like at first, back in the day, I didn't, but I love, man, once I wrap my mind around this concept, it's great. You understand, you kind of feel bad for the people, and you understand it's their insecurities that are talking, and use it as fuel to show them what you're really going to do. And, here's an example. I have big visions and big goals of what I'm going to do. I already know where I'm going. It's clear as day. And when I share that with some people, I'll get chuckles. I'll get people shouting out, what are you made of? If I hit a bad golf shot, for example, on the golf course, what are you made of? And first thing I say is, hey, listen, you're not going to get on my jet when I buy it. One, don't worry about it. And two, watch me. Because remember, since 11, I've been proving someone wrong that threw a $100 bill at me and said I was going to need that when I was living on the streets. Anything anybody says to me is nothing. But you got to be able to wrap your head around that concept. And once you do, it's life is a lot easier.
I love that. That's like, I always say that for the longest time I've been dunking from the foul line like Jordan. Like, you tell me I can't and I will. And that's fine. And I feel you won't ride in my private plane either, because there's those naysayers that are out there like, look, You crapped on me when I was trying to become something. And when I become something, trust me, the elevator I'll send down for my friends and bring them up to the same level and any of my amazing partners. You, my friend, will not be because, that's the crazy thing. Go ahead.
But you need to also understand that you already are something.
Yep.
You already are something. So nobody can take that away from you. Self-worth is important. That's part of the things that I work on with people in my company. I have a company called People Building. And People Building Inc. is all about building people and helping companies invest and build their people to build their company. And so, self-worth is very important to understand. And once you understand your self-worth, nothing's going to be taken from you and nobody can tear that down. And so, I love that stuff. That topic is one of my favorites, man.
Yeah. Because that's one that just always cracks me up is this whole, like the troll mentality. And like I'm always tell people, don't feed them. Just ignore them. And it's so funny how some people want to engage. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about lessons learned. I used to feed trolls. That was a bad idea because it's like feeding alligators in Florida. Not a good idea because then they start hanging out with humans. And the person who loses their life might be a person, but most likely will be the alligator who was just like, dude, you were feeding me. It's like feeding your dog. They're going to show up every day like, dude, I want that sandwich again or the steak that you threw me. Don't feed. That's what the point is, right? So don't feed trolls. I just think it's just so funny the way that some of these business owners think they're going to get ahead by trolling other business or saying negative things when why give that much space in your head to worry about? You should be focused on other things. There's plenty in business to worry about. Your own business, your family, your kids if you have them. Knowledge is power. I know when I became 40-ish, sorry, couldn't resist, brother. 40-ish, reading took over my life. And I read a book a week. No matter
Same
what,
here.
because knowledge is power, and it's amazing. And they're everywhere. They're not just. It's not like I'm reading a stack of Grant Cardone and Gary Vee books. Everybody thinks that's all I read, and I'm like, you should look on my shelf. Their books are there, but they were read a long time ago. They don't pump out new books every day like so many others. But so let's talk about that as I bring up Gary Vee and Grant Cardone. And this is another thing that I hear business owners divided on. Now, both of those gentlemen are awesome, two great entrepreneurs. So many people watch what they say and are like, okay, I have to work 18 to 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I need to tell everyone that I'm doing this. And I'm like, great, you could work hard, but you shouldn't punish people who do take days off, who do rest, who do spend time with their family, and saying when the best time to work. I saw this on LinkedIn, actually, which makes this question come to you. I was prepping for our talk, and I was like, oh my goodness, perfect topic. It was this debate, like, well, some people are morning people, and like I'm one of them. I wake up very early in the morning. My house is dead quiet. I go into my office, I shut the doors, I turn on the light, I have my coffee, and I crank out 4 hours of work before the first person even wakes up in my house. 2 hours in, I'm almost done with my day, and I just kind of have the follow-up where I'm planning out, like, in a few hours I'll do more work. And people are like, oh, you can't work that way. You got to work 8 hours. Why are you working not during the day? I'm like, because we work in a different world now, and it's not bad. Well, Grant Cardone are you here? Insert name, Tony Robbins, Lewis Howes, you just imagine it. It's a different world now. So what do you say to these folks that believe that there's no time for rest, you can do that when you're dead? I understand it, but I think it's a different world we live in now. And I hustled hard in my 20s and my 30s. I still think I hustle hard. I just think I became smarter about my hustle and knew what was also important. I also understand the most important person in my business is me. And if I'm not mentally there and not physically there and taking care of myself, I am no use to my clients and my employees.
So little shout out to my people in Miami. They say sleep when you're dead, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to sleep. I try to go to bed at 9 and wake up at 4 or 5, and I get plenty, 7-8 hours of sleep. I believe in that. And then the other thing is that what I like to talk about is I like to hit things when they need them. So when I need to grind at work, this week has been packed because I'm traveling tomorrow. Matter of fact, I'm actually going to see Grant tomorrow.
Nice.
But the funny thing is I'll squeeze in as much as I can this week, right? Mm-hmm. Last week I was on vacation from Wednesday to Saturday. I knew I was going to do that. So at that time, I'm off. Yeah. And I needed time with my family, so I spend the time there. It's where things need focus at that time, and that's what I do. And I'm very conscious of looking at that, and as long as I don't get comfortable or complacent, that's all I concern myself with. So you can listen to whoever you want. My advice is to find a mentor. And don't find 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, but find at least one good one, and that speaks to you, mm-hmm. and then follow them. And you don't have to follow everything that they do, but don't complain if you don't get the same results that they have. That's all.
Exactly. I love that you said that because that's so true. Finding a good mentor. I have 3 solid mentors that I go to. They're kind of each part of my realm. And obviously you have a great one you're going to go see. He is the man for sure. Mr. Cardone is, dude knows what he's doing. I'll give him that. I mean, it's hard. I see people hate on the man, but I kind of chuckle when they do it. I'm like, do you hate because you don't like him, or you hate because you don't have what the man has? I think more of it's the second than the top. So it's an interesting world. So before you go, let's talk about your podcast. And I hear you have a book coming out. I don't know if my team sourced me correctly, but let's talk about, number one, your amazing podcast that you are just crushing it on. You've had amazing guests on there. Let's talk about your podcast, and then let's talk about your book, because folks we love buying books on this show. I can tell you our show is very supportive to guys writing books, guys and gals writing books. I should not just say guys. I'll get in trouble for that, but you know.
Well, no, look, so first of all, the podcast started because I was preaching to my mortgage team about, we have 40 employees now. I was preaching to them about getting known and getting out of obscurity like Grant talks about all the time. And I said, guys, we got to do this, we got to do that. And I'm like, I'm not doing it myself. Now, so I took action and said, I got to do it myself first, lead the way, lead by example. So I decided to figure out a way to get known globally, not local markets where we were located, but globally, think bigger. And I started thinking, okay, global. The only way I could think as quick as possible would be a podcast. I had no idea how to do a podcast. I had no idea. But when I made the commitment, everything started to fall into place afterwards. I don't know if you experienced that with your show, but that's what happened. And then I started asking big people to come on. I just asked. I didn't give a shit if they said no. Excuse my language, but I didn't care if they said no. I just, went for it. And then they said yes. And then I just started picking their brain and finding out what they're made of. And that's what I ask myself a lot of, Eric, is what are you made of? Yep. When I'm going through tough times or want to get to the next thing, something bad happens, hey, what are you made of? Let's go. Yeah. So that happened. And then I started thinking to myself, I'm reading other people's books. Why don't I write my own book? Yep. And, with the podcast and all the guests I have great content already. I can put my spin on things of how I interpret the guests. And so the book is called Rocket Fuel. And I love that punch that we were going to name it What Are You Made Of, but it's just not as punchy as for a book. Yeah. So Rocket Fuel is what I'm filled with and made of. And so we put that as the title. It's coming out probably the end of this year, January. We're working on it now. And if they go to the Mike C-Roc with no K, themikecroc.com, they can subscribe and get access to a free copy of the ebook when it comes out.
I love it. We love getting free books around here. That's a big selling point. You and Brandon Steiner just letting us go onto your websites and get free stuff. We like that. Free is good, and especially when you learn stuff and get rocket fuel. I love the name of your book, by the way. Just strong,
thank you.
Strong, man. That's awesome. So before you go, I always ask this question of all my folks that say they like to read. So off the top, without me even prepping you for this, top 3 books right now that you would suggest to folks out there today.
Well, I have to say the 10X rule. I mean, it is what it is. It spoke to me when I read it, and it's what our group operates off of. So that's one thing. The second one is Beyond Positive Thinking by Dr. Robert Anthony, who another mentor of mine, Brandon Dawson, turned me on to. And it's just, I'm so intrigued with the brain and how it works now, and I'm studying that. So, I'm trying to be a brain scientist now, but I'm doing that much research on it so that I can understand it better. And third is 3 Feet from Gold by Dr. Greg Reed, man. Greg Reed is a great superhuman being. And his book that he wrote, which was sponsored by the Napoleon Hill Foundation, was phenomenal. And I encourage everybody to go read that one besides the Rocket Fuel that's coming out in the next 6 months or so.
Good answer. Make sure you read your book too. Always include your book on the list of books people should be reading. And I love that. The 10X rule, I agree with you so much. That book is a game changer in so many ways. That's a book that lives on my shelf, has been thumbed through. And when I got to meet Grant at an event, and by the way, it's funny you bring up Brandon Dawson, great guy and local to us here in Portland. We absolutely love Brandon. Met him several times. Just such a cool dude. Like you don't look at Brandon, like I laughed when somebody was like, Brandon and Grant are working together, and you're like, that they don't look like they go together. Like one's like one way and one's Grant. It's like Brandon's just so cool because like you could sit there and pick, but both their brains. I mean, I've had the privilege of sitting in a green room with Grant, and I literally felt like how you just like a sponge. That's like it was an hour we were in there, and he was so down to earth, because you get around some of these guys and they look like, on social, like, oh God, they would probably be just too cool to talk to. And they're just like, he was more geeked out because he was at a military event, and he was more geeked out that we were in the military and we had prior service than anything else. He was like, I just love, we were like, dude, you're Grant Cardone and you want to like just have this buddy chat with us. Like we're equal to you, man. That's kind of cool. So Grant's a good dude. We like Grant.
Yeah, he actually, a lot of people don't realize he's got a great heart. He really means that he wants to help people when he says that. And that's the biggest thing, like being around him in person and stuff, and hanging out in small group settings with him, and interviewing him on my show. It's just, you could tell that he's really genuine with his care to help people, despite all the flash and all that with the jet and all that.
Not that, but hey, I mean, the man worked hard to get that. It's not like he just popped up one day and was like, hey, I want a jet. No, he worked his you-know-what off to get it. And by the way, you can always cuss on our show because the host is a Marine, and there's 0 words that become offensive to me. Just try to stay away from the F word. We kindly ask folks not to use that one on the show just because.
You don't like that? You don't like to have fun?
Well, we like fun. It's the other one that Marines are known for saying, not the fun word. That's the one that gets me in trouble every time. They're like, Eric, you can't say that online. I'm like, I can say whatever I want. But anyways, Mike, I want to thank you, C-Roc, for joining us today. We'll have all of your links available in here so folks can follow you online. We encourage them to go out and follow you on Instagram. Are there any other channels besides your website so they could go get your amazing ebook? Where else can they follow you besides Instagram? I know you have a huge following on Insta. Where else would you like folks to follow you at?
They can go to YouTube at Mike C-Roc Ciorrocco, and you can watch the podcasts on there. I put them all up on there as well. And Instagram's my favorite, man. I respond to DMs all the time, and hit me up there if you have any questions. Engage with me. So when I put stuff out there, I'm doing it for the people that are on there. I mean, I feel like I owe my obligation to share everything I went through. So engage with me on Instagram.
I love it. Well, Mike, I want to thank you, Mr. C-Roc, for joining. Mr. C. I think I've called you like 4 different names on this show. That's just because that's what we do.
Mr. Eric, thank you so much.
I don't know why we're doing this. It's weird. But anyways, I want to thank you so much. We got to have you back. I love having these deep dives into business with a true business influencer out there who's changing the way the game is played and helping people out. You have a great mission, man, and I'm thankful to even know you and be able to interview you and talk about your amazing mission to have people achieve their ultimate greatness. That is amazing, my friend. And everyone else out there, stay tuned. We have more coming your way after these messages. Thank you for watching today's show. As always, if you'd like to be a guest or you know somebody that we should have on our show as a guest, feel free to email us at hello@tothepointtv.com. We look forward to hearing from you. And you can also email us if you have a complaint, want to give us kudos, high fives, or if you have an additional question for a guest. Feel free to email us again at hello@tothepointtv.com. Our Twitter is up and running, and it's for social good. Not yelling and screaming political or anything else crazy on our Twitter. So follow us on Twitter at @ToThePointTV, and we'll tweet back at you. And as always, we want you to check out our IG. We love Instagram. Our Instagram stories are up, they're buzzing, and they're meant for you. We love our fans and followers, and we want you to know who our guests are coming on, and we want you to engage with us, and we want to engage with you. So make sure you're following us at Instagram at @ToThePointTV. Now, we love you on Facebook, and we want to make sure, because you're probably watching this on Facebook, you're like, why would you already follow us? But tell a friend that they can come follow our show and never miss a live episode. As you know, here on Facebook, make sure you head, if you're not on Facebook watching this, then it's different, but our Facebook is To The Point with Eric Mitchell. So make sure you follow us there so you always get notified when our show goes live at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Now, for the folks over on YouTube. Now, YouTube, we love our YouTube, and our channel is growing, and we love you there. Now, if you missed the live show at 12 p.m. Eastern, you can catch the premiere, which is re-recorded. The premiere on YouTube goes down every day at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and simply just go do that. So remember, with YouTube, what we want you to do is smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and flick that bell. That's right, hit the bell. Give that bell some bell love, and that way you know when we're on air and you can catch our latest episode. Check out our playlist. All of them broken down by the day and guest and show, so you can always stay up to date. Once again, on behalf of the entire team here at To The Point. We want to thank you for, again, tuning in and watching our show. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow on To The Point. As always, I am your host, Eric Mitchell. Be safe, be strong, be smart, and God bless America.
Let's get to the point with Eric Mitchell. Let's get to the point. Sit and enjoy. This is Eric Mitchell. He the host of the show. Get to the point. He is the voice. We needed this, something more. This a daily show that's known for politics and the sports. Ain't no limit to whoever you may see at this point. To celebrities, Eric Key's beast in the joint. As a veteran, put him at ease, then anoint. Every conversation can never be disappointed. Whether tragic or it's happy, Eric will cover whatever's happening. Whether it be your gymnast, toe tapping, talking about nearly any athlete, not taking a back seat. You're never gonna get it past T. Everybody running from it, it's a stampede. But he's on it like this man who took that knee. Mr. Mitchell's way too crafty. Let's get to the point.